that Russia now delivers combat drones to Iran. Can you confirm this? Does not NATO have any information about this? So the other way. And the second question, completely unrelated. The former Lithuanian Foreign Minister Landsbergis has called for a NATO investigation into whether Hungary and especially Hungarian Foreign Minister Szijjártó has leaked confidential information from NATO meetings. You've heard what he said about his behavior before and after EU meetings. Do you see reason of concern that he's behaved in the same way when he met with fellow NATO colleagues? And if so, would you launch an investigation? Thank you.
Thank you very much. On the first question, of course we know that Russia, Iran, North Korea and China are working closely together. We know that Iran is one of the suppliers of essential gear for Russia to maintain and solidify its war against its unsolicited provocation, war against Ukraine. That's clear. So it tells you something when these reports come out that Russia is sharing so much also with Iran. So let's not be naive about that. I cannot tell you what the intelligence is telling us because obviously that's intelligence, so that we keep that secret. But you can see yourself from open sources, and we know this for some years that there is a close connection between Iran, Russia, North Korea, and China. And then on the second question, all 32 allies, they all agree that Russia is our most significant threat. There is no discussion about that. Threat to our security now and longer term, and also that all 32 allies are totally committed to make sure that we have the collective defense in place, we take the necessary steps required to ensure indeed that we can deter any threat. So we're working together with all allies on this every day.
Okay, now the third row in the center, Al Jazeera. Wait for the mic, please. Wait for the mic, please. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Faster from Al Jazeera.
Hi.
I want to clarify something because you have been under criticism in the last couple of days because of the interviews you gave in the weekend. European diplomats felt you overstepped your role because the mood in Europe was not endorsing the war Israel and the US are now fighting, but there was a much more hesitation, and also the fact that you said all these countries are coming together. The message the European nations were saying that they only want to help when there is a ceasefire, or at least the fighting has stopped. The message you're giving now sounds different, so could you please respond to this criticism and clarify exactly what these 30 countries are going to do?
Yeah, I don't think I think I'm still saying the same, and it is that, as I said also on Sunday, that NATO has always been consistently clear that the whole of the alliance, that obviously for Iran to possess a nuclear or a missile capability poses a threat not only to the region, an existential threat, by the way, to potentially Israel, but also a threat to Europe. And Iran is an exporter of chaos to the region and to the world for many years now. Let's not be naive about that. And what the United States is doing now is degrading that capability. And yes, I applaud it. In the alliance you will always have different views. That's unavoidable. It is an alliance of democracies. But when it comes to not accepting Iran having a nuclear and missile capability, we all agree. The whole of the alliance has also condemned the indiscriminate attacks of Iran on its neighbors. That was in a meeting only last week with ambassadors also of the Gulf states here at NATO headquarters. And then, indeed, when it comes to this group of countries coming together, most of them from NATO, to make sure that the Strait of Hormuz, the sea lanes, are open. And indeed, that begs the question, given the fact that the war is ongoing. What does that mean in terms of the what question, the when question, and the where question? Actively now, countries are working together. The United Kingdom is leading that effort under Prime Minister Starmer and the senior military in the United Kingdom, together with France and others, to make sure that those questions will be answered. And this is to President Trump's request. He said, hey, I would have rather have that seen earlier starting. And there my reaction is, Europe needed time because the United States, for good reasons, was not able to inform allies of what was going to happen now 3.5 weeks ago on Saturday morning, because that would have potentially led to a leak or whatever. That is always a risk when the US had the opportunity to take out Iran's leadership. So I totally understand that. I don't criticize that, but it means that it takes some time for Europe to come together, and that's happening as we speak.
All right, second row, Reuters.
Thank you very much, Lee from Reuters. I'd actually like to follow up on Irina's question. So in that same Washington Post story, it said that the Pentagon had actually notified Congress that it intended to divert about $750 million in funding provided by NATO countries through Pearl to restock the U.S. military's own inventories rather than to send additional assistance to Ukraine. What is your reaction to this, and was NATO notified of this change? Thank you.
Well, again, it's not for me, and it's not very difficult to do this in an open presser, but to comment on individual weapon deliveries. But I can assure you that the critical support from the United States into Ukraine, paid for by allies, so this famous abbreviation PEARL, continues to flow. And this is crucial because this is next to the intelligence the US is sharing with Ukraine, which is essential. It is also essential defense industrial output from the United States, from their stockpiles, when it comes to, for example, interceptors for Patriot systems, but also other crucial and vital military gear.
Okay, just next to her, Deutsche Welle.
Ksenia Polska from Deutsche Welle Ukrainian.
Good morning.
Good afternoon.
Secretary General, so based on the report and what you have already mentioned about Ukraine, NATO is now coordinating the arms deliveries to Ukraine. It's coordinating the training for Ukrainian army. It is learning its lessons, as you said, from Ukrainian war experience through, NATO is for coordinating and JTEC is for the lessons learned. We have heard news about the role of Ukrainians also in different military trainings and maneuvers. And given this level of operational involvement and cooperation, would you describe Ukraine as already part of NATO's defense ecosystem, even without the formal membership?
Well, let's be very precise on this. NATO is not party to the conflict. So NATO is indeed coordinating all the support, the training and the weapons deliveries and capturing all the lessons and making sure we share them within NATO. And then, of course, we also share our insights with Ukraine through this joint education and training center in Poland, the so-called JTEC. You're totally right on that. But then I don't want to put a particular frame on it. There is a path into NATO for Ukraine, which was agreed at the Washington Summit in 2024. That path will take time because we know there are various allies not accepting NATO membership at the moment, and so that is not on the cards for now. But we also know that through the coalition of the willing, together with the United States, in Paris in January, under the leadership of President Macron, we agreed on what the security guarantees for Ukraine should look like post a ceasefire or a peace deal. Preferably a peace deal, if not, then at least a long-term ceasefire. And I think that's extremely relevant, because in the end, if it is not NATO membership, and again, that's not on for now,